What's going on, guys? My name is BasedOnImpulse and welcome back to the channel. I'm back with another guide, and this time I want to take a look at the Season of Arrival's Dungeon Prophecy and give you guys some tips that I learned during my solo flawless run that can help you out immensely. That emblem is a sexy one, and I know a lot of you out there want it, but let me warn you, it ain't easy. Across both days that I attempted my solo flawlesses, it probably took around 5 or 6 hours of trying total, so just keep in mind that no matter how much I tell you in this video, this challenge doesn't hold your hand and is not easy. But I'm going to do my best to help you guys out as much as I possibly can. Keep in mind that this video assumes you already have a grasp on the mechanics of the dungeon, so I won't be explaining that part of it. I also recommend running through a solo and testing out every encounter by yourself to get a feel for how it would go before attempting a solo flawless. I did this for the boss fight only, and it helped me to get a lot more comfortable with it, so just keep that in mind. This dungeon is also recommended power 1040 and scales up to 1060 in the final boss room, so I wouldn't try this challenge at anything lower than 1060 power minimum, and would recommend that you be closer to 1070 power for that little extra boost in survivability. For reference, I did mine at 1073 power level. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get straight into the Prophecy Solo Flawless Guide. Before we even start talking about the dungeon itself, let's talk about class, subclass, and loadout. I think your best bet for getting your solo flawless is easily playing on a warlock using Well of Radiance. This is what I personally used for my run. Using the Well subclass gives you 2 panic buttons, your super and holding your grenade, if you're ever in a sticky situation and need some health right away. I can tell you that the grenade ability on that subclass saved my ass countless times in my run, especially in that final boss room. As for your weapons, I actually switched up my heavy on almost every encounter, but my kinetic and energy were almost always taken up by Mountaintop and Recluse. If you don't have these weapons, you could grind them out as they make the dungeon way easier, but since sunsetting is on the horizon, I know some people don't want to go grind for those, so I would just use a hard-hitting kinetic sniper like Long Shadow, or a grenade launcher like Malicious Birthright, or even Wither Horde can be good, paired with a solid ad-clearing energy weapon like Last Hope or the Death Adder. I'd recommend rotating your power weapon over the course of the encounters, as that's how I did it on my run, and this is the rotation that I did for that. I used Falling Guillotine on the Phalanx Echo, Xenophage for the Wasteland and the Rubik's Cube room, and Anarchy for the final boss. We'll go more in depth about how each of these helps when we get to their respective encounters, but let's just keep rolling for now. As for exotic armor, I use transversive steps the whole time on my warlock. You're constantly moving in this dungeon, so always having your weapons reloaded for when you aren't is nice. Not to mention that extra boost to movement speed helps you keep scooting around the encounter areas. For Titans, Lion Rampants are always a solid choice. Helm of Saint 14 also can have some utility. And for Hunters, the 6th Coyote is not a terrible choice to have the double invis dodges, and also, of course, Stompies are always a great choice. Let's also talk about the mods that will help you out significantly while you're running this, and there's a lot of them. The most important things that you absolutely need to have on your armor if you're attempting a solo flawless are Concussive Dampener, Hive Barrier, and Taken Barrier. These are crucial to your loadout because otherwise all of those Taken Knights are going to end your career before you can even think twice about it. Taken armaments are also extremely important to have for this because the heavy ammo economy in this game is horrible right now. If you don't have armaments and think, oh, I'll just use Finder mods instead, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that that's not going to cut it. Armaments guarantee heavy on a grenade kill, and you get the same amount as you would from a normal brick. All the Finder mods do is boost the chances of it dropping, and then when it does, you get less of it. So go get Taken armaments. End of discussion. Other mods that are helpful but not absolutely necessary are Major Resist, Breach Resonator, Taken Spec, and Oppressive Darkness. Major Resist will actually stack twice before giving you diminishing returns, so that's another mod that's nice to counter the Knights. Breach Resonator is an artifact mod from Season of Arrivals that gives you a small amount of grenade and melee energy back on kills with an anti-barrier weapon, so if you're using Recluse or another SMG or auto rifle, pairing this mod with an anti-barrier weapon like those is very helpful. And if you're on a warlock with Well, you'll have that grenade up a lot more often for health, or if you're on a Titan with Bubble, you're going to have that overshield melee up a lot more. You could also put Taken Spec on both your Mountaintop and Sword, because why would you say no to bonus damage against literally every enemy in the dungeon? And finally, Oppressive Darkness. This is really more for my Titans and Hunters out there, since Warlocks, I think you should be on Well of Radiance the entire time. By now you guys probably know all about how great oppressive grenades are, so I'll spare you the time. If you're on a void subclass, run them. Oh, and also, remember to set your fire team to closed. Don't want anyone joining on you while you're trying that solo flawless. So now that we've covered your loadout, let's hop into the first encounter. So first there's actually the door opening encounter before the Phalanx Echo, but in all my runs I just skip this. On a Warlock, use Top Tree Dawnblade and activate Heat Rises to just fly up the shaft easily. Titans, just swing your sword and get up there, and Hunters, you can do the Sparrow trick. Just jump into the shaft, swing your sword up a few times, jump again, spawn the Sparrow, and hold your backward movement button, boost forward, you'll shoot right up the tube. All of those different techniques I'm showing on the screen right now. After that, swing over to the platform to start on your first actual encounter, the Phalanx Echo. For this encounter, you'll want to be using Falling Guillotine for your DPS. Each class will want to be using Well, Ward of Dawn, or Top Tree Tether, depending on which one you are. Throughout the entirety of this encounter, you'll want to be staying along the outer edge of the arena. This is the only place where you can really get cover and have some time to heal. Being on the edge does give you the risk of getting hit by the boss's shield blast, though the cone on it seems to be very small, so the odds of you getting hit off the edge are pretty slim. If it does happen though, quickly swapping to your sword and swiping back to the platform should save you. When you start the encounter, prioritize taking out the Scions as quickly as possible. Don't even worry about moats at this point yet. A few well-placed mountaintop shots will wipe them all out easily, but if you leave them alive, they will multiply and become a massive headache later in the fight. I always choose to do both sets of dark moats and then do both sets of light moats, but just kind of do the moats based off of where you are in the room, where the knights are, whatever's going to be most comfortable and what's not going to get you killed. One thing that can make or break your success in this fight is controlling the knight spawns. The knights always spawn 3 at a time, and killing the final knight in the group triggers another wave of them to spawn. Since you only need to kill 2 knights to have enough moats to cleanse a plate, you should only have 1 knight and the boss in the arena when you go to cleanse. Please do not try to cleanse a plate after killing the last knight and spawning a new wave. I did this a few times and got extremely lucky that I didn't die. But try to only have 1 knight alive when you go to slam the moats. A strategy that I use for my light moats that might be helpful for you is hitting each knight with a mountaintop as they spawn. That way you can kill any knight you need to when you're maneuvering around the room trying to make light moats. Keep in mind that sometimes the knights will also hardcore W key you like they did to me here. And I get... I'm done. If they charge you, you just need to put as much distance between you and the knight as possible, or just hit it with a heavy attack from your sword to kill it. Once you've dunked all your moats and started DPS, drop your well or bubble right on the boss's feet. Hunters, you should save your tether for when the goblins spawn, but use an oppressive darkness grenade to help boost your damage right off the bat. Hunters and Titans should be able to hit a fairly easy 2-phase on this boss, mainly due to the goblin spawning and causing the boss to go immune. Titans might be able to hit a 1-phase if you can keep the boss in your bubble and block him from the goblin's immune shields. Warlocks, though, you can take advantage of what I guess is a bug that allows you to damage through the boss's shield and through the goblin's immune fields. I don't know how this works, I don't know why this works, I just know that it does, and it makes this fight an extremely easy 1-phase. And this is one of the main reasons that I really recommend a Warlock for this dungeon. So once you kill the boss, get ready to swap your weapons and head into the Wasteland. So personally, I switch my weapons and try to scoop up any leftover ammo from the Phalanx fight before I even go and drop into the Wasteland. I swap to a sniper to help take out the hobgoblins and a xenophage for the blights and the yellow bar enemies. Some other good options here are a bow so that you don't have to worry about special ammo for the sniper, and also Anarchy for the blights. Anarchy will destroy the blights by sticking them with just 1 grenade, but Xenophage I still think is a little bit better of an option, mainly due to the fact that Anarchy isn't great at taking out the shielded yellow bars. As far as what your strategy should look like when you're in the Wasteland, I recommend sticking to the edges of the area where the blights are and taking the snipers out first, then get a little bit closer to bait the thralls into you, kill all of them, and then worry about taking out the yellow bars. Don't even think about the blights until all the enemies in the area are gone. So just repeat that twice and move on to the Rubik's Cube. There really isn't a whole lot to say about the Wasteland, honestly. You just need to play smart and play your life. I've seen some people recommend standing on top of the blights since you can't be damaged there, but I'm gonna advise you to not do that because at least in my experience, you'll get lasered the instant you peek out of the blight. Also, make sure to shoot the floaty balls, the taken darts that the Centurions will shoot at you. They can hurt pretty bad if you get overwhelmed by them. But anyway, let's move on to the room that was consistently my run killer. Welcome to the most claustrophobic and chaotic encounter you'll ever have to solo in this video game. Honestly, I'm exaggerating. Once I got into a rhythm, this encounter really isn't that bad, other than the random pits in the floor. So yeah, don't do what I did there. Swap back over to your mountaintop and keep your xenophage handy. You'll need it for the knights. As soon as you start the encounter, I'd recommend taking out one hobgoblin as fast as possible and setting yourself up directly underneath the other hobgoblin. This way you don't have to worry about getting sniped and can clear out the acolytes that are spawning pretty easily. The acolytes will spawn a crap load of acolyte eyes if you don't take them out quickly, and they can actually hurt pretty bad if a lot are shooting at you at once. Once all your acolytes are dead, pop the knight with a few Xeno shots to make him drop his motes, but don't rush to pick him up just yet. Once he's dead, see if you can spot the hobgoblin that just spawned after killing him from where you're standing. If you can, go ahead and kill that hobgoblin before moving to pick up the motes, so that, again, you don't really have to worry about getting sniped if you move quick enough. If you're a hunter, dodge to go invisible before picking up your 5th mote, because if you dodge while holding your ×5, it's taken away. Titans, I would recommend getting your overshield from that melee before picking up your ×5 if possible. And Warlocks, grab your ×5, and then once you're close to the plate where you're going to cleanse, throw a healing nade at your feet so you don't get beamed while you're dunking. After you dunk, quickly run to a safe spot out of sight of the snipers and wait for them to despawn. They despawn about 4 or 5 seconds after you dunk. After that, clear the ads and move on to the next room. Here's just a couple of other quick tips for you when you're switching rooms. If you need to, you can just barely tap the outer edge of the plate and run back to cover. If you're solo, the game counts this as you standing on the plate and will teleport you to the next room without looking like you're being abducted by a UFO. This is just something I wanted to mention, but honestly, it's not necessary because you can just wipe the ads and then stand on the plate. You're not on any kind of timer here, so go as slow as you need to between rooms. Also, when you drop into a new room, try to immediately locate one hobgoblin and go sit underneath it just like the first room. This again alleviates your chances of being sniped. Other than that, just rinse and repeat until you get to the mini bosses at the end. Remember also that you should use your super here if you desperately need to stay alive. Don't be afraid to slam down a well or pop a bubble if you're about to die. That's why you're using those supers in this encounter. If you ever want to have your super back or desperately need ammo, you can always wait before moving to the next room after you slam your motes. Ads will keep spawning and you can keep killing them for ammo and super energy, and no more hobgoblins or knights will spawn. It'll just be acolytes. As for the mini bosses at the end, they're really easy to kill. Hopefully you have a super going into this phase to make it easier, but you don't absolutely need it. I would recommend waiting for it though after you cleanse your last plate going into the boss room. It takes 10 Xeno shots with no buffs or debuffs to kill each Centurion, or at least it did for me at 1073 power. So if you have oppressives or bubbles or anything else, it'll be even easier for you. Just like Wasteland, make sure to shoot those taken darts that the Centurions are shooting at you, as they hurt even more here than they did in Wasteland, because now the power level is 1050 and not 1040. After you take out both bosses, clear out the remaining ads just to make sure you're 100% safe, and move back out into the Wasteland and on to Rainbow Road. Much like the Wasteland, there's not a whole lot for me to say about Rainbow Road. The best advice that I can give you is take it slow. Like, painfully slow. Don't chance anything. I personally didn't even get on my Sparrow once. Keep in mind that if you're going down the platforms and not the normal Sparrow course, the game will spawn taken phalanxes and vandals to try to mess you up or kill you. Your best course of action when they spawn is to kill them as fast as possible, especially the phalanxes. Easiest way to deal with them, pop their feet with a xenophage shot. That one-shots them and takes away that anxiety of falling off the map really quickly. Also, be careful of where you decide to jump because, yeah, that can happen apparently. Honestly, to avoid that, just don't stand where they spawn, I guess. I still don't really even know how that one killed me. Once you get to the bottom, if the tube isn't pulling you up, you just need to run to the very back edge of the platform, then run straight forward, and you should get pulled in. So now, only one encounter left. Let's talk about the Kell Echo. This boss fight can be absurdly overwhelming by yourself. I highly recommend getting a boss checkpoint and just trying to solo this over and over until you're comfortable with it. I wiped at the boss on one of my attempts, but I finished it out and figured how to play the boss. That helped me so much that on my next run, I got my solo flawless. So strap in, this will probably be the longest part of the entire video. Mountaintop Recluse Anarchy. That is by far the best loadout to use here. Mountaintop is great for damage and killing knights, Recluse is great for the trash adds, and Anarchy is great for sustained DPS while moving around in the boss room and for killing the ogres. Try to save your super until DPS if you can manage it, but don't sacrifice staying alive for those extra percentage points of damage. You can do as many phases of damage as you need to. Warlocks, I would recommend using your well mostly for survivability in the moat rooms, as that damage buff isn't going to be crazy useful to you during damage because, like I said, you can do as many phases as you need to. Hunters and Titans, you might be more inclined to save your super for boss, which for you is more viable. But regardless of class, if you need a super to stay alive, no matter where in the encounter you are, do it. This is a solo flawless, last room, don't die, whatever you have to do. So when you first start the encounter, I pre-anarchy both the knight spawns on the left and right side. Some adds will spawn with them as well, so this will just help keep the room a little less hectic right off the bat. Just like in the Phalanx fight, clear those scions fast, or they can and will ruin your run. That's what wiped me on the first time I got to the boss room. The scions in this room aren't dependent on the knight spawns, they're actually on a timer, so if you're moving fast enough, you potentially could only have to deal with them at the very beginning of the fight and not have to worry about them until you come back after damage phase. But if they do respawn, clear them out as quickly as possible before continuing on with your moats. Before you clear the first plate, the room's going to be crazy. You're not really going to have any good place to hide and heal, so just keep moving, utilizing any healing abilities you have while doing it. Mountaintop the knights to take them down, grab those moats, and cleanse a plate. Once you've got that first plate down, your life becomes a whole hell of a lot easier. Toss 2 anarchies on that ogre that'll spawn and hit him with a mountaintop shot. He'll die just a second or two after that. Now, you've got a base of operations set up in that cleansed corner, so take a second, get yourself together, heal. Keep moving around the room then, and healing while gathering moats to cleanse the other plates. Remember that you can always fall back to your cleansed corner for a second of safety if you need to. Don't get too comfortable though, because the knights will shoot fire at you if they're up. After you cleanse your final plate, run directly to the middle and go down for damage if there are no scions. If there are scions still up, wait to kill the ogre and then clear the scions and go down for damage. Don't rush to the middle after cleansing the final plate, as the scions that are up can beam you and possibly kill you. I almost died from this on my run because I was getting really anxious going into my final damage phase. If there's no scions, run straight to the middle, go down, that way you don't have to waste ammo on the ogre. Once you're in the boss room, your list of priorities should go like this. First and foremost, watch your dark entropy buff. Stay inside that ring around the boss as much as possible. Don't let it get high. I died to this in one of my practice runs on the boss, and I'll be honest with you, you feel really freaking stupid when it happens. Next on your list, don't get teleported. It does a bit of damage to you, completely disorients you, and can kill you if you're moving when you get teleported and you can't react fast enough to catch yourself and might end up flying off the edge. Next on your list, kill the hobgoblins. They hurt even worse here than they did in the cube encounter. And finally, DPS. Yes, damage is the least of your priorities here. If you want a solo flawless, your number one priority is staying alive over anything else, not damage. I always shot 2 anarchies onto the boss right when I went into the room, and then I would keep spamming with mountaintops and dodging teleports until the hobgoblins came up, take out the hobgoblins, toss 2 more anarchies on and continue my DPS, rinsing and repeating until the boss gets to the end of the room. Once he's there, I would take out the hobgoblins with the mountaintop shots and keep DPSing the boss with anarchy and mountaintop. After the boss is no longer damageable, keep in mind that you can wait in that room as long as you need to before going back into the moat phase. I almost always waited for my well to come back and ran back to the platforms for ammo if I absolutely needed it. Once you go back through to the moat phase, do it exactly the same way you did before. Pre-anarchy night spawns, clear scions quickly, and get a plate cleaned to calm the room down a bit. So guys, that's really all I have for you today. If you found this video helpful, a positive rating would be greatly appreciated. Also remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you know when new videos go live. All of my solo flawless attempts for this dungeon were streamed live on my Twitch channel, so make sure to follow me there. You can find the links to that as well as my Twitter and Discord server all in the description box down below. So thank you all very much for watching. Good luck on your solo flawless, and if you want to see my reaction to finishing mine, here's the clip right now.
The Nine have given you their answer. We hope it sates your curiosity.